and let us all do we can to build a better future.
Turns out, Bernie Sanders is calling out Manchin. Now, I think what we all need to remember is Sanders' cowardice in 2020 brought us here. Now, he's going to call out the president, Joe Biden. Apologies for that stutter. He's calling out President Joe Biden for going to Saudi Arabia, but then he quickly goes to bat for his good friend Biden by calling out, oh, Manchin's doing this and undermining the president's agenda. Hey, Bernie, Biden never had an agenda, and boy, oh boy, do you like to carry water for the DNC? Shout out again to Case Study QB. I don't know how you sit through this stuff, my friend. Be sure to support him. He's being censored by Twitter. Let's play this video.
That has gotten a lot of blowback from even your fellow Democrats, especially that fist bump with the Saudi crown prince. You've referred to Saudi Arabia as a brutal dictatorship that crushes democracy. Should Biden have gone?
No, I don't think so. You have a leader of that country who was involved in the murder of a Washington Post journalist. I don't think that type of government should be rewarded with a visit by the President of the United States.
But at the heart of the discussions was oil, and President Biden said that Saudis would take action in the coming weeks. Could that make a difference? And doesn't that explain why he went? What would you have done?
Well, I'm sure that, Martha, I'm sure that is why he went. But the truth of the matter is, if you're looking at the outrageously high cost of gas at the pumps right now, one of the things we've got to look at is the fact that while Americans are now paying $4.50, $4.80 for a gallon of gas, the oil company profits in the last quarter.
For a quick second. Now, what I find sad and really embarrassing about this entire video with Bernie talking about, with Bernie talking about Biden, is that he had every opportunity to really, really bring forth a strong campaign and challenge the Democratic establishment. It's just to know that even I had the audacity to hope in 2020. I remember covering that election cycle, and I assumed, I thought he would be ready. I thought he'd be more of a fighter. I apologize again for really holding out for hope for somebody that wasn't really going to fight. Let's play the rest of it.
Have been extraordinarily high. And I happen to believe that we've got to tell the oil companies to stop ripping off the American people. And if they don't, we should impose a windfall profits tax on them.
So would you just ignore the Saudis if you were president?
Look, you got a family that is worth $100 billion, which crushes democracy, which treats women as third-class citizens, which murders and imprisons its opponents. And if this country believes in anything, we believe in human rights, we believe in democracy. And I just don't believe that we should be maintaining a warm relationship with a dictatorship like that.
And I want to go back to the economy. How concerned are you about a recession?
Well, what I am really concerned about is that increasingly, Martha, and I think most Americans know this, we are moving rapidly into an oligarchic form of society. We talk about the economy doing poorly for the working class, for the middle class. That's true. But we should also recognize the economy is doing extraordinarily.
Right here. Now, again, everything that Bernie Sanders is speaking about, when it comes down to this recession that we're in and everything else, because he's saying a lot of things that I agree with. It's just, I'm disappointed in the fact that this is somebody who just didn't go all the way. Now, ideally, I want to see somebody else stronger than him fight. But if you run in the Democratic Party or in the Republican Party, you will always be constrained. I had hope. Truly, I did. Let's play the rest. All right, we're ready for it to load up. Let's play the rest of it. All right, let's stop right there. We'll wait for that video to reset itself. So now later on in the video, Bernie's going to be calling out Manchin. And I think it's only fair that we really look at how Bernie Sanders still fails to do the proper thing. And that is call out the entire Democratic establishment. He chose not to do the right thing. He chose not to fight all the way. Let's pull up the rest of the video.
people on top, for the billionaires who have seen a $2 trillion increase in their wealth during this pandemic while 1 million Americans died. So the struggle must be to create an economy that works for all, not just the people on top, a political system which is not dominated by super PACs and billionaires, a media which is not owned by large corporations. And I think the American people, what is very clear, whether you're Democrat, Republican, or independent, people looking at Washington and they're saying, you know what, you don't represent me. You don't know what's going on in my life. I can't afford health care. I can't afford the cost of prescription drugs. I can't afford child care. What are you doing about it? And what people are doing about it is taking money from super PACs or being influenced by super PACs, and the rich get richer.
Senator, I want to turn
all of our people to. Yeah, go ahead.
Senator, I want to turn to Congress and the agenda there. Senator Joe Manchin, of course, abruptly pulled the plug this week on the Democrats'
No, Martha, he didn't abruptly.
Here's the golden point right here.
Okay, he abruptly on Friday.
I like how
abruptly do anything.
He was negotiating for a while.
He's going to bring up some points I agree with.
No. Look, if you check the record 6 months ago, I made it clear that you have people like Manchin, Sinema to a lesser degree, who are intentionally sabotaging the president's agenda, what the American people want, what a majority of us in the Democratic caucus want. Nothing new about this. And the problem was that we continue to talk to Manchin like he was serious. He was not. This is a guy who is a major recipient of fossil fuel money, a guy who has received campaign contributions from 25 Republican billionaires. Do you think this guy is serious?
Senator, you say he wasn't serious, but Manchin says his main goal is to do what's good for West Virginia, and he's worried about inflation. Listen to what he told the West Virginia radio station. Listen to this, please.
Is that right?
Inflation is absolutely killing many, many people. They can't buy gasoline. They have a hard time buying groceries. Everything they buy and consume for their daily lives is a hardship to them.
Your reaction to that?
Pause right here. So let's talk about the hardship for working class Americans. Let's talk about the hardship that we all have to go through. This recession, this inflation that we're in, it could have been avoided. Remember during the lockdowns, the oil corporations, all the big corporations that were involved in the fossil fuel industry lost a lot of money. They're trying to regain everything that they lost. Let's also remember that these politicians do have the power and the resources and the ability to make our lives exponentially better, but they choose not to. Democrat and Republican. Remember, it's one big club and you ain't in it. And I don't care how much of a diehard Democratic voter or diehard Republican voter you are. At the end of the day, no one in Washington, D.C., be they in the Senate or House, Democrat or Republican, actually really give a damn about you. They never will. See, these politicians have Medicare for all. They have gold-plated health care. They have a wonderful six-figure salary. They have connections to corporations and other lobby groups so that they are set once they retire from Congress, or better yet, they get their family members inside so that way the family business can still keep on going. These politicians also have wonderful social benefits as well. Meanwhile, let's take a look at what's happening outside. Americans are struggling day in, day out just to make ends meet. And let's talk about President Joe Biden's agenda. What is the agenda? Well, his administration has still continued on a lot of Donald Trump's foreign and domestic policies, but those are the same policies that Trump continued on under Obama, George Bush Jr., Bill Clinton, George Bush Sr., and Reagan. No one in Washington, D.C. gives a damn about you. And Bernie Sanders, let's face it, he did a strong campaign, or that made a strong impression on a lot of people in 2016 and 2020, but he never followed through. And now we're going to see his outrage towards Manchin. This is who the Democratic Party is, Bernie. And this is the same Democratic Party, and also your good friend Joe Biden, who constantly let Manchin dictate policy. The Biden-Harris administration were never going to challenge Manchin. And Manchin and Sinema have been in the White House more than you have, Bernie. So let's play the rest of the video.
Senator.
Well, look, the same nonsense that Manchin has been talking about for a year. West Virginia, it's a beautiful state, and I've had the pleasure of being there. Great people. It is one of the poorest states in this country. You ask the people of West Virginia whether they want to expand Medicare to cover dental, hearing, and eyeglasses. You ask the people of West Virginia whether we should demand that the wealthiest people in large corporations start paying their fair share of taxes. Ask the people of West Virginia whether or not all people should have health care as a human right like in every other country on earth. That's what they will say. In my humble opinion, Manchin represents the very wealthiest people in this country, not working families in West Virginia or America.
And Senator Sanders, I want to end with, if these provisions don't get passed, doesn't look like they will, what does that mean for Democrats' climate goals and the climate itself?
Martha, it ain't Democrats. It isn't the president. It is the future of the planet. So when Manchin sabotages climate change, this is for future generations. What's going on right now in the West, all over the world, we're looking at significantly increased, more and more heat waves. You're going to look at more drought, more flooding. This is an existential threat to humanity. And what this election must be about is whether or not we're going to vote for candidates who are prepared to stand up for working people, stand up for the planet, and have the courage to take on the billionaire class who dominates our economy and our political life. That's what this election is about. The Republican Party is not there. We need more progressive Democrats who are going to fight for workers.
Okay, thanks for joining us this morning, Senator Sanders.
All right. Those are Bernie's words. He's saying things I agree with, but let's look at how he constantly bent over backwards and carried water for the Democratic Party in 2021 and all the way up until now, too. How convenient now that he's finally challenging Manchin, like really yelling at the Biden-Harris administration and Joe Manchin and all the other corporate Democrats. Where was this fight early on? See, this is what happens when you compromise your values. This is what happens when you constantly sell out. Now, this might upset a lot of Bernie Sanders supporters, but at the end of the day, let's face it, not once but twice the DNC committed election fraud to deny him the nomination, that he willingly turned a blind eye to. Am I glad that Bernie is calling out Manchin? Yes. But these are words. These are statements. No actions or deeds are being taken place. Honestly, if you really are a progressive, Bernie, if you really wanted to shake the foundations of the political system in Washington, D.C., you'd form your own party. You'd break away from the two-party system. You'd get whoever you could to actually build a new party. But let's face it, you're not going to do that. And this is why I say to our audience here at Harlan's Media, we have to break away from the two-party system. Yeah, you got to call out these jagoff politicians. And yes, Bernie Sanders is being correct here. But at the end of the day, he's still a failure. A failure for not stepping up. A failure for not doing the right thing and actually calling out the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party is just as corrupt as the Republican Party, and he chose not to say anything during the 2016 and 2020 primaries. And now he's saying that his good friend Joe Biden, well, he's always there for him. Now he's finally challenging his good friend. And now there's talk about potentially Bernie Sanders being one of these runners for the 2024 primary. Because let's face it, Joe Biden is a senile old bat. He can't control anything. You want change? You wake up and you realize that you're being sold out. You break away from the two-party system because you don't owe this political system anything. People like Bernie Sanders won't fight. They'll say things you agree with, but they won't follow through. The real change comes from regular people. The Biden administration is still going to do its own agenda. They really don't have a plan. And the fact that they're not doing anything is a perfect excuse. Because Manchin's their perfect scapegoat. Their perfect little boogeyman until 2024 comes around. Nothing's going to fundamentally change. And Bernie Sanders saying all the things we agree with hasn't really changed either. Boy, oh boy, what a world it would be if he actually had follow through. But he's not, because he has no backbone.